Okay, the attendees are coming in because they now got access. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And then, of course, they'll have copies of it as well. So for those who are coming in, welcome. Thank you for taking out some time on your Saturday to be here with us during Auntie Rona. Oh, we got somebody from the UK. So hello. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. So without further ado, welcome to the Black Food Entrepreneurship webinar mini series. This is the very first one that we're doing, and we have two more in store for you, and we hope that you would tune in to those as well. My name is Ariel Smith. I am the founder and executive producer of the Food Truck Scholar podcast, and I, along with Anthony Edward, the founder of Eat Okra. Download the app, by the way. We are so excited to present this webinar series for you. The first one is on marketing strategies. So we know that marketing is big when it comes down to any business, but when it comes down to food, it's got to be tight and it's got to be right. So we're very excited to have our panelists for today. And I'm going to introduce them to you. Second. So our first one is Apollo Woods. Apollo, after owning a marketing consulting agency since 2005, Apollo created Oklahoma City Black Eats to support Black-owned restaurants, chefs, and food trucks in predominantly African-American communities and stimulate economic growth in local communities. OKC Black Eats is a marketing consulting agency that provides revenue-generating solutions for hospitality professionals and restaurants. Their mission is to continue to stimulate local economy by circulating local dollars in predominantly Black and African-American communities. OKC Black Eats provides expertise in marketing solutions for culinary professionals, including digital marketing and techniques to improve its clients' positioning in the marketplace. So welcome, Apollo. We're so happy to have you.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I was hoping you were going to read the long version.
But we got to shout them out. We got time today. Listen, Black excellence. We got to shine today.
That's what I'm talking about.
So next we have Marvin Johnson. Marvin is the CEO of Dashable and is an experienced entrepreneur who has co-founded 2 previous businesses and grew them to over $1 million in revenue. Additionally, he has Fortune 500 experience as a product development executive at MasterCard. At Dashable, they help build businesses and retain customers via a self-service subscription-based deal creation and distribution platform. So we're talking about a lot, y'all. Dashable is merchant-centric while also providing value to its customers. They address pains small to medium-sized business face while using existing daily deal providers, such as lack of control, high costs, and lack of ongoing customer engagement. How you can be a part of it: business pay a monthly subscription, and customers and consumers find redeem deals via their app, and it is free for us to do. So download the Dashable app. Now, we also want to turn our attention to Anthony. I can't plug your app the way you do, Anthony. So tell them why they need to download Eat Okra so to find some Black-owned businesses, restaurants, and food trucks.
Yeah, it's all about marketing, right? Eat Okra is a tool to, really help the business owners, help users find diners, and we make that connection so that wherever you're traveling, there's a Black-owned restaurant for you to enjoy.
Absolutely. And if you don't see a restaurant that you love that's not on the list, make sure you reach out to Eat Okra so they can add it. Well, so thank you, gentlemen. Now, I'm holding it down as the only woman on the panel for now, but we did have Chelsea Rao, the founder of Culinistics. She was unable to join us today because her voice went out. But I do want to shout her out and about her experience because we do plan to have her at another point later on in time. So Chelsea is the founder of Culinistics, and she has over 10 years of experience, both in corporate and operational experience. She has had the opportunity to work with brands that are making waves in food service and grocery retail industries. Chelsea started Culinistics to bring corporate level services to aspiring foodpreneurs and startup food businesses that don't always have the access to the manpower of large consumer brands. Whether through free online resources, aggregated research reports, or one-on-one consulting packages, Culinistics is the place for you. And so she has been sharing some of those tips on Instagram. So if you follow her on Instagram and visit culinistics.com, you can connect with Chelsea there. So with that being said, for those who are in the chat, we're just drop your questions in the chat. We're also going to have the links to everybody's brands, everybody's websites, everybody's companies. So do take advantage of that. If you have any questions for our panelists, drop them in the chat and either me or Anthony will pick it up. All right. So let me take some water because that was a lot of reading. Mm-hmm. And let's get started. So first, you're here as the experts. But experts, what makes you all great is that you've also had a lot of great successes, but also some L's, some failures. So what has been the number one lesson you've learned about marketing by starting your own brands and being a part of other people's companies?
I can jump in. I think the biggest thing I've learned is not easy. But I have a two-part answer. It's not easy. It's not easy as you think it would be when you have all your plans set out and what you're going to spend money on and what you're going to do and the results you're going to get. There's a lot of trial and error. But one thing we really found out is very different when we market to businesses and consumers, businesses that offer deals and consumers looking for deals. And it's a very different marketing strategy when trying to market to businesses than consumers. Businesses are looking for something easy to use that provides immediate value. They're worried about metrics and demographics, things of that nature. Whereas consumers are more concerned with, what am I going to get? Is this fun? Is it easy to use? And more about the engagement with the application, things of that nature, not really metrics and stats and figures that a business owner would be involved in.
He's right. It's it's definitely not easy, and you're doing this. You have to be agile. So I came out of the oil and gas industry before jumping into full-time entrepreneurship, and the benefit of being in a large corporation is that there's all these structures and things you don't have to worry about. But when you're doing it, it is all the lessons, all the L's, the wisdom, everything is on you. And the biggest lesson that I've learned, especially with COVID, and I correlated to health disparities. So COVID just exposed health disparities, and you have to be very agile, mobile. And in this environment, if you're not agile, mobile, or creating trends or getting ahead of the curve, it's going to be really hard to respond or then just provide your customers or clients or potential clients a service offering.
What I heard out of that is not just the flexibility, but the research and being observant. Because a lot of times, you may see a trend, be like, that doesn't apply to me, or saying, well, this worked in this point, so I'll be fine. And a lot of times you have to be able to be willing to say, well, I'm seeing something new that's taking place. Right. How can I work that into my plan? Or do I need to change my plan at all? And a lot of businesses who refuse to adapt to what's new, they are extinct, i.e. Blockbuster.
Yeah. Yeah. We try to maintain what we call a fail fast mentality. So you try something, if it doesn't work, you switch to something else. Being agile and not having your mindset, I'm doing this and following this strategy no matter where it takes me. When you see things aren't working or marketing conditions shift, you need to be agile and pivot, very quickly, as the market and conditions change.
And as fast paced as this environment is, this is actually a good time to throw a bunch of things on the wall and see what sticks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas prior to this current state, you didn't want to do that. Like, you wanted to be calculated. You wanted to make sure it worked. You get the ROI. But now, because there are so many large corporations who are having a difficult time as a big corporation getting to local consumers, the biggest threat to the big corporation are those smaller businesses that have the ability to connect with that market on a one-to-one basis with a phone call or just walking down to their office or meeting up for breakfast or for coffee.
So let's talk a little more about that, because right now I'm redoing my business model canvas right now. I think I've done like 8 of them at this point.
I'm there with you.
I think I've done about 8. And so for some people, they may not even be aware of what a business model canvas is. So do you mind either one of you jumping in about what that process is about and how they can use that business model canvas to throw all these things out here, if you will, and see what sticks?
I'll pass that to Apollo.
I would say this is my version of what I do as a business model canvas. And I'll be honest, I just recently decided that as we are getting ready for our real rebrand that I reached out to a colleague that owns a firm and was like, hey, look, I have all of these things and they're in my head, but sometimes I get really challenged with all these ideas in my head and creating a process that can be documented. So I reached out to them, and maybe this is even the lesson that I could share too, is just because you build it and you love it and you put blood, sweat, and tears in it so much, you have to sometimes stop and say, I need to reach out to somebody that can actually coach and teach me too,
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to see it from a perspective that I didn't. I learned so much from that meeting I had. And I'm excited to see what they can show me. But and it wasn't a Black owned firm, but they understood that the service that you're providing for me is directly benefiting Black owned businesses. And if you're not comfortable with that, then we're not going to be able to work together. And we're completely comfortable with that. And this has definitely been the space where if I say, hey, here's an idea, is this representative of culture? Is this thriving off of our culture, not appropriating it, but is it thriving and building and growing our culture? Because there are little nuances that we know, right? Sometimes it's kind of hard to articulate it, but we feel it, we know it, we can touch it, and not everyone's going to get it, but we will get it. But trying to find a way to put that out there. So my brand canvas probably looks a lot unorganized to somebody else that's looking at it, but it is a smorgasbord of things right now.
Well, see, I asked that because I've had many different iterations of mine. And some of them look like a smorgasbord. Some of them, I think they looked organized. I don't really know what they were in actuality.
Right.
But I'm saying that there's multiple methods to the madness.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. And what Paulo was saying, like, as far as like taking outside advice, I have a board of advisors that I meet with every other week, and they just give me a lot of strategic advice regarding how I should drive the business and things like I should do. And it's good to have these people around you or looking at your business from a 30,000-foot level, because as entrepreneurs, you get down to the nitty gritty every day, doing what you're doing, putting out fires. And it's good to have some people around you say, hey, Marvin, you should be looking strategically at this thing or looking at that, and bring you up so you're looking at the business from a broader level and not just get stuck in like what I need to get done today and tomorrow. So it's good to have those people around you. And I found out that people have a lot more time on their hands now because people aren't commuting to work and they're working from home. So people are looking for things to do to keep themselves busy. So it's easier now to get free advice and from people right now, because people tend to want to help each other, and now people have time to do that. People are looking to do good things now. I think there's a better spirit these days of people working together and trying to help each other out that wasn't in place from my perspective, before COVID came around. And also from like a business development standpoint, we launched like late last year, and we called a lot of companies, businesses, restaurants, what have you, that are doing really well. And with a new marketing platform, a lot of them were like, no, I'm good, wait till you guys get some traction and come back to me. Now, since COVID hit, people are like, well, remember, hey, why don't you come back? Let's try that thing out you're talking to me about, because now's the opportunity to really get people to try some new things. And a lot of businesses are struggling, and some of them aren't really growing that well. So they're looking for ways to help themselves grow. So now's the time to be out there growing your business, even though it doesn't seem like it's the perfect time to grow a business, but in some cases, it is the best time to grow a business right now.
So I'm going to put you on the spot then. So you talked about your advisors. So like, what do you think about when you're picking advisors? Is it like they have a certain type of expertise, or that their business is at a certain platform? What are you thinking about, or what are you looking for when you're picking these people to advise you?
I'm looking for people that have expertise that I don't have, that have business expertise, deep business expertise in certain areas, whether it be finance or marketing or product development, that I can leverage, and the people that know more than me in those areas. And also, I look for advisors that have some kind of connection to funding sources. So two of my advisors we actually met through pitch competitions, where we did a pitch competition last year when we had just started, and both of the angel groups are like, you guys are too early for us to invest. But after the pitch, a person came up to me and said, I really like your idea. I want to be close to your company. I want to be an advisor and kind of hang out with you, learn what you're doing, keep abreast of it. So when time comes for investment, I can help you do that, or I can invest and things of that nature. So it depends on what your business needs at that point in time and where your skill set is. You want people around you that know more than you and know different things than you and can help you in different ways. So it's specific to whatever you need in your business, but yeah.
That was definitely a great point, because I've learned I guess, papers over the past year that I had to really, I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty good connector and relationship builder. But I also had to learn as I've grown to a different maturity in my business and where I am versus a year or two ago. I needed different pieces. So, so if people haven't really paid attention to The Last Dance about the Bulls, if they hadn't paid it, they got to go back and watch that, man, because the part where where Dennis Rodman joined the team, it applies in business in so many ways. I mean, he worked for their nemesis. I mean, he played for the nemesis. Nobody, they didn't like Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman didn't like the Bulls. But it came down to, this is the missing piece that I need to get these rings, right? And what happened? They won 3 rings. Scotty went down, and then Dennis Rodman doubled his production. But when you have those right pieces and and Marvin's right, is finding those advisors that are going to able to get you to that next level. But the other key, learning this from being on nonprofit boards, are those people connected to financial resources? Can they get you that access to capital that you need? Because having friends or people that you like around you is only going to get you so far. You got to have people that can fulfill an area of improvement that you do not possess.
And financial capital is huge. I'm not sure if Anthony was going to say something. I think I heard him.
He's on mute. I was me. I was gonna say also, you want people, at least I want people that aren't gonna be yes men, that people are gonna stand up to you and tell you when you're doing something wrong or they think you're doing something stupid, you know, and I have that sense of that comfort level with them, let them know, hey, if you see something and you think I'm doing wrong, you know, I'm gonna be the final decision maker, but I want to hear what you have to say, you know, good, bad, or the ugly. You need people around you, they're gonna say, hey, Marvin, that's not a good idea. Not for that's what I think, and you can digest that. Take it as you use it as you see fit, but you want people to be comfortable enough to tell you those things that you may not want to hear, because in the end of the day, you want to use that information to help you further your business and move in the right direction.
I will say that has been critical for me. So I went through a couple of designs for my logo when I first started, and I sent it to some people, and I was like, "Oh, I like that. That's cute. That's nice." I'm like, you're not criticizing it. I need somebody who's going to critique it and give me feedback. And so then I took it to someone else and they said, this has nothing at all to do with what you actually study or what you actually work on. Try it again. And so I was able to redo it. But that's getting back to your point of, you need people around you that love you enough to tell you that something is terrible, or maybe they don't even love you. They just like you and say, hey, fix this. This is not okay. So the next question, though, because you talked about how this environment right now is actually probably a good time for us to get invested and start throwing out different ideas and seeing which ones would stick. But at the same time, we also got to recognize where we are. So Malcolm X said that when America catches a cold, Black America catches pneumonia. So where are we when it comes down to the state of Black restaurants in COVID-19? Because we can't not talk about it. Where are we, and where could we possibly go?
Okay, I guess that's me. So I would say, for me, seeing the rise in attention for Black chefs, I would say probably over almost 5 years, the past 5 years has been really cool to see more James Beard Award nominations and winners. And seeing more Black chefs at executive in larger restaurants as executive chefs, seeing that. And then now we're at this place of all of this media has jumped on the support Black-owned business wave right now.
Yeah.
So prior to it, it wasn't much thought. It was all this controversy and all this stigma and negativity in relation to supporting Black-owned restaurants and businesses. And I can give you some firsthand accounts on some malicious, bigoted comments that I've received. Anthony can attest to that too. I'm pretty sure Ariel and Marvin as well, when you start talking about anything Black in the phrase.
Definitely.
But yeah, I saw that last one you posted. I was kind of getting mad for you. But when you see that, it's like, okay, there wasn't enough attention, and you don't see so I'm a commissioner for the Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau. So when I look at tourism, you don't see reports that show here is the impact that Black-owned restaurants have on tourism. Here is the dollar that's equated to their existence to tour. Here's the impact. You don't see it. So now people are trying to uncover what's the real impact that you see. So now with all this attention and these funds and these programs created, business relief funds for Black restaurants and businesses, unfortunately, because of, you think about red line financing issues and banking issues, we are not ready to take that leap with where things are going to. So where I think we're often hurt in is that because we haven't typically had that same level of business support, and there's an opportunity there. Well, if the window to apply for a grant or for funding is probably a week or in sometimes a couple of days, I don't have time to bid for it because it's never been for me or for us for the past 401 years. So all of a sudden now I'm supposed to get ready. So what I'm seeing is this shift in trying to find a way to how do I manage my restaurant? And then how do I also learn these business support practices that I need to grow it, to compete? Because it's hard to manage the demand in request if I didn't have enough time or I wasn't ready. Nobody was ready in COVID to actually handle the amount of requests that come in. So now I'm in a rock and a hard place. Y'all want to support me, but we don't get the consideration or the grace or patience. But I'm also trying to learn how to scale my business up in the midst of this 4-month pandemic, 5 months, I guess.
Yeah, what we found is some Black-owned restaurants have I guess are steady. The ones that decided to stay open. Now, a lot of them that we've dealt with are doing really well actually because of all the attention to Black-owned businesses right now through the media and things of that nature. So a lot of the businesses we're working with are getting more business than they had before, and hopefully that continues. Hopefully it's not just a flash in the pan where after this cycle ends that people aren't seeking out Black-owned restaurants. We found like before COVID, a lot of the businesses we talked to were kind of somewhat complacent. No, they had a loyal customer base. A lot of times that customer base is in their local neighborhood, and a lot of times it was Black because they were in a Black neighborhood, and then Black people catered to them. But now people tend to be seeking out Black-owned restaurants, or they're expanding their customer base and getting more coverage. And we actually work with a company, Baked Cravings. They make cupcakes, and a lot of the business was already online. So after COVID happened, their online business just exploded. So it's a mixed bag of the people that decide to stay in the game and try to leverage this thing to their advantage are doing well. Others that decide to sit on the sidelines, of course, aren't doing as well. So it's all about that. Being able to be agile and pivot and look at the market conditions and leverage them to your favor, which people need to get in that mindset. There's always an opportunity. You just got to figure out the right path to success.
And those shelter-in-place guidelines for most restaurants, I know here, I think there was a shelter-in-place guideline that was pretty rigid until about May 1st. So a lot of restaurants will depend on, let's say 70% or more of their revenue comes from dining in. Mm-hmm. So because it depends on dine-in service, but you haven't necessarily, your business model just wasn't based on online orders or using third-party applications. I mean, you're like, I get my revenue from dine-in, then all of a sudden, shelter in place, close your dining rooms.
Yep.
So how do you shift when 80% of your revenue is stopped, but you have to invest to get your website, e-commerce, and those things up and running? So when you have opportunities from Black entrepreneurs who are creating those technical driven solutions to bridge that gap, it's definitely an advantage. It allows us to be able to compete with those restaurants that are drive-through driven restaurants, like your Whataburgers and your Sonics and your Arby's or whatever those are. I mean, I've seen lines for Taco Bell that I've never seen before. But our restaurants, because of dining, are struggling because there's not a drive-in type service.
Yeah. In New York, go ahead. Sorry, Anthony.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for us, we've seen a direct correlation of what's really happened with COVID. Prior to June, we've had about 20 to 40,000 downloads. I'll say 40,000 downloads. And then since then we've grown by 400%.
Wow.
since June. And before, when we were going through adding our restaurants, we see a lot of restaurants didn't have delivery services or didn't have websites. And a lot of the restaurants, we talked to didn't even care to be on eOkra, or, it didn't matter. They didn't get it. But now everything has changed. You have to have an internet presence. You have to have a web presence. You don't have to have like a professional photo. You just need a couple good cameras to take good photos of your food. But you really have to like really now pay attention to that, because your first impression is on the web. Your first impression is that picture of your food. So you've seen a lot of restaurants do better at that now. A lot more restaurants are getting on our app as well, are participating, excited about it. There's definitely been a big boom for the Black community supporting each other, and not just the Black community. Actually, it's been a lot of support targeted specifically for Black-owned restaurants. We've been on tons of calls with people that are just wanting to support, wanting to volunteer, wanting to help in any way, because they do see the injustice and unfairness to the peers, and especially in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it take off in the media world as well. So there's a lot of articles that's being taken over about supporting this many lists of Black restaurants, or even a lot of more podcasters are talking more about it. Different topics that probably wouldn't have got as much traction that I would have posted a year ago. Now they're getting traction all over again right now. I just did a podcast blog on 20 podcasts ran by Black women on the topic of food, and that had done really well. So it is a moment where there's a lot of opportunities, but there's also a lot of challenges. And I think Apollo used one again at that earlier when we're talking about redlining, we're talking about discrimination with banks. Is on one hand, it's an opportunity. On the other hand, we also have some hurdles that's in the way of that as well. So while it is great that we're seeing more people have Black Lives Matter on shirts and other merchandise, we also need them to matter when, I wouldn't say matter most, because they matter all the time, but in those situations for us to really grow and expand, we need it to matter economically when it comes down to policies and things of that nature, for sure.
And just to tap into that a little bit, and it's also a time but we have to also take some responsibility. We have these challenges that exist for us, but you also have to look at what you can control. So if for the past number of months that our businesses have been closed, you have to take that time to pivot in your business. You do not have the privilege of waiting and see what happens. You don't have that privilege. So when you look at right now, Oklahoma City has instituted a mandatory mask. You have to wear a mask indoors, and they have some stipulations around it. Because of course, there's big controversy about wearing masks in public. But excuse me. But with that, you're seeing the trend, because we're a sales tax driven city. So for us to generate revenue, we need the sales tax. So people are trying to get people back to normalcy. So you have to know, as a restaurateur, food trucker, you have to know you need to get ready for when it will open. How they open, we're not going to necessarily like it. You may like it or may not, but you have to be thinking now, how am I going to be prepared for when we reopen? Because what was normal before COVID is not going to be normal now. Your dining process will have to change. So if you're not willing to pivot now, then it's going to hurt even when we do open and there's some type of normalcy.
Let's go a little deeper in that. So we know that it has to change. Like, dining experiences is not going to be the same. So what are some examples that you can think of things that dine-in experiences have to change?
I'll let the gentleman go.
One thing I think outside looking in is, especially in New York City, we sit so close to each other and everybody's packed in. I don't think that is going to happen going forward, especially, 8 people at a 6-table person picnic table, seating, and how we do here. That's got to change. And right now, a lot more people sit outside in the street on the the parking street, you know, lots of.
Yeah, New York's done a lot, like with street seating now, and putting seats in the first row of parking on the street to give people more space to socially distance. But in New York, you know, the rent for a restaurant is extremely high in New York City. So you need a lot of turnover to pay your rent and pay your employees. So you need that capacity in your restaurant to be able to have that much turnover a day to make enough money to pay your employees and pay your rent, because the rent's exorbitantly high in New York City. So I'm not sure how they overcome that. Maybe prices may have to go up because you can't have the same number of people coming to your restaurant every day, but your rent's still the same. So there may be an increase in pricing, but we have to adhere to the social distancing and all those other safety measures as well.
So when you even look at, here I look at Little Caesars. So Little Caesars Pizza, growing up, like I didn't want to go to Little Caesars Pizza. They had the worst pizza crust ever. I was going to Domino's, Mazzio's. I was going everywhere else in high school. I was not thinking about Little Caesars Pizza. Now, Little Caesars has a very small space. They have these $5, $8 hot and readies, and this is all you get. You pick from this, and that's it. But they are able to take the volume. So we are going to have to find a way. Restaurants are going to have to find a way to make it easy for them to buy, and that is just typical business. How easy is it for me to buy from you? Because even though more people are at home, they're still hungry. So if you don't make it easy for me to buy from you, I'm going to Taco Bell. Mm-hmm. And one way that we could do that is by I'm actually liking to see the spinoff from the impact of the industry into the tech space. So we're seeing more prevalence of Black STEM career professionals say, hey, here's a solution that we use a mobile application to make it easier. Look at Chick-fil-A. Look, Chick-fil-A is now delivering. Chick-fil-A has just some remodeling of their restaurant. They have a covering over their drive-through for their employees. It's like a car wash. You got like 2 or 3 lanes, and they're in the lanes giving great service. They're using a mobile application, taking your order, and people want to be in the line. And they'll stay in that line. Why? Because they make it easy. And then I can get to the line relatively quickly, have my food. So I think the models that we have available are Chick-fil-A. And I just want to say this, don't look at Chick-fil-A as the scary model. You can't, because it's big Chick-fil-A. Anybody can use that same model to create a system for your restaurant business. And there are Black professionals who are capable and to do that all over the country. And we see 2 of them right here on this video chat now.
I'm even thinking just of things like menus. So many people have paper menus. No one's going to want a paper menu now because you have to touch that. Like, how many hands are going through that? I'm even thinking about even the ones that are laminated that you can wipe off. Still the concern of I have to touch this. And are you going to wipe it down every single time somebody touches it? Where are you storing it? I'm thinking about those type of questions as well, like even just how you list the food. But you get to a point with Little Caesars is that a lot of restaurants, sometimes they have 1,000,001 things on their menu. And I'm not sure how you can handle the volume of those demands if you have 1,000,001. So I have a lot of food trucks, because obviously that's what I do. And they talk about when they go to a festival, they think that if I have this really big plate with all these things on it, that'll just make the customer happy. And it's not. What the customer actually wants when they're in that particular scenario is they want something they can hold in one hand because they're going to go somewhere else and get some more food in the other. And you have to condense your menu down to just a certain amount of things. So you may have a full menu, but you have to condense. And so some restaurants may see themselves having to probably condense their menu to, okay, what are the top things that people are asking for? Maybe a couple additional ones, and how fast can I turn those products, those meals out?
And back to your point about menus, there's no reason to have paper menus or even laminated menus now. Everyone has a phone in their hand. You know, you can order online. You'll be able to see your menu on your phone or something like that digitally. That's personal to you, that no one else is touching. And also contactless payments. No, why have to pull out my card? I can tap my phone and pay. Use other kind of payment methods that don't involve me touching cash or touching a point of sale terminal or touching a card. Things of that nature. There's ways to make the the environment more safe, and also give you faster throughput and make those transactions go more smoothly, and also save money. Now you're not printing menus, all these things you don't have to do anymore or manage.
I'm spoiled. I'm here in upstate New York, and the other day I had to actually take my card out and pay and touch the pad, and I was so upset because I was like, "How do you not have this set up here in New York, in the city?"
Exactly.
It's not that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You'll be surprised. Like, I'm looking at a lot of restaurants that were actually curbside by default. So, like, I'm thinking about restaurants that had absolutely no seating. You just walked in, you picked up your food, and you left, but they were closed. They actually closed down and did not open. And to me, I was like, that was a great opportunity for you to capitalize on people that want curbside or just pick up, but instead, I can think of quite a few that were closed. I can also think of quite a few that not only have they not gone to online options, not only are they not on Eat Okra or anything of that nature, they're taking primarily cash. And right now,
I don't want your money.
No, I don't want your like money was already dirty.
Right.
Yeah.
But if Rona is on it, I want it.
Yeah. I think even when you look at QR codes have been around for what, 20 years, right? So I went to one particular restaurant, and you can scan the menu, but here's the gap, and this is a chain. You can scan the menu, I can look at the menu, but I can't order it online. I scan the menu, I look at it, it's somewhat difficult to read, but they're still going to take your order, either over the phone, or if you're in person, they're still going to take your order. You still have to give them your card, right? But as fragmented as that sounds, but it's a start, right? It's a start for something to go to the next step and to manage the volume. What I'll say is, if I notice in restaurants, it's interesting to see that Black and other minority restaurant owners, we typically have restaurants that get a lot of volume. And it's becoming more of culture to see people standing in long lines. You don't see that in mainstream restaurant world. So because we have that, I think it's still another opportunity to say, well, if people are going to be in this line and they're going to be social distance as much as they can, how can I make this an easy buying experience? And it just goes back to think about business. How do I make it easy for you to buy from me? How do I do that? And just have to start. Like, you just have to start. You cannot wait.
And I think that's a key question that you kept saying. Like, I've heard all of you say is, how can I make this easier for the customer? And sometimes we're like, well, that's too hard for me to learn. I don't want to do that. Or I don't feel like doing that. So how about you just do what I've been doing? and we're seeing that. And like, that kind of goes against the conversation that we had earlier, is being willing to be flexible and being willing to constantly learn about what the next practice is. So if you haven't been online at all, maybe the next step is to do delivery and to make it online delivery and to get on Eat Okra. Maybe the next thing for you to do is to bring in more traction about your business, and I can have you on my show, or we could feature you all. There's different steps to it. So I definitely agree with what you said, that it is a start, but the key is you must start. I think that's the key thing that Auntie Rona has showed us, is that being set in our ways and not willing to, try something different, not willing to go online, not willing to think digitally, is going to cost some of us at this point, if it hasn't already.
You have to be digital these days. And it's become more and more apparent that you have to be digital these days across the board. And it's a fact of the world now.
Yeah, and if you think you're going to, like, this wave is going to be over, this coronavirus wave, don't think that's it's going to stick around. It's going to be waves of the city shutting and opening and reopening. So you definitely have to think the long-term play, and that's digital.
But even when you look at the medical records with hospitals. I think I got an echo. So you look at medical records over the past few, like what was that, less than 20 years ago when they went electronic, it was a huge adjustment. But now all hospital systems are using electronic medical records. It's changed that industry. And I think COVID is like equivalent to EMR and the hospital system, where this is the thing that changes the service-based industry. And it's painful in the adjustment, but you see, I'm already seeing now other corporations, different corporations who are going more the paperless route too. So if their corporations are going paperless, they're using technology in a better way, their procurement process and supply chain processes are going to change. So they're going to want to do business with other businesses that have easier processes too. So if you have a system established where it makes it easy to buy, think about how much more catering business you can get because you made it seamless to buy and you made it easier for that person in supply chain and procurement to buy from you as well. Catering business for a lot of our restaurants is a huge part of business, not just restaurant food trucks, mobile caterers. It's a huge part of your business. So once you make that adjustment, you're seeing how Auntie Rona is impacting other industries. And when they align, there's so many more revenue generating opportunities for our restaurants by making these adjustments and pivoting quickly.
So we've talked a lot about how to make it easier for the customer, which means that I cannot ignore social media. And it's not because I'm a millennial, it is because it is the thing to do. So let's talk about tools and strategies that if people aren't using them by now, they should. So we can talk about social media. Which ones are you all on? Which ones are y'all using?
Oh, well, first we use Instagram a lot, Instagram and Facebook, and a little bit of Twitter. We also use email marketing. That's somewhat effective as well if you have the email addresses of people. And of course, we use our app as far as marketing own businesses. We use our app with the Dashboard app to market local deals around the New York City area. So those are the primary channels we use as far as digital channels right now.
Yeah, I think when you're in the food world, I mean, you have to use Instagram. And that is the place for food. I use Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter in different ways, but definitely food is the way that gets the most traction. What I've noticed is that if you don't understand that algorithms on these platforms change, then you think that just because you're posting something, that's it. And understanding that when you're collecting data, how to interpret data. There is no one way to interpret data. So if you're creating, and you can get data from your POS system, you can get data from your social media pages. So if you don't understand who is your customer on that platform, you could be posting at the wrong time. You might not be posting enough. You may be targeting the wrong age demographic. Just because you see a certain person that you like, oh, Mr. So-and-so comes in at this day every time. That's not your customer. You just have a loyal person. But if your customer is between 34 and 51, but you're targeting on platforms that cater to 16 to 24, what are you doing? Like if you're using TikTok and you probably should be using something else, you're targeting to the wrong customers. So right now, everybody's on their phone. I got a notification from Sprint, and I have an unlimited plan. And Sprint said, "You are getting to the max of your data usage." I was like, "But I thought I had an unlimited plan," because everybody's on their phone.
Yeah, true. Like we said before, it's not easy. So you just can't post to social media and think that's the end of the game. There's a lot of knowledge and technical stuff behind the scenes that you have to really be able to analyze the data. So you're posting at the right time, posting the right content, so you're reaching the right audience. I actually took a class about Instagram. I took it as a one-day class to learn about the Instagram strategies and how to leverage Instagram and how to leverage Facebook. And like Apollo said, it changes. So next year, Facebook may update their algorithm, Instagram may update their algorithm. So what you're doing last year is not going to work anymore. So you got to keep on it. And what we've seen, the restaurants we work with, the ones that have done the best are ones that have actually outsourced their marketing and social media to a company that specializes in that. A lot of times it doesn't cost that much to do that. To find somebody that really understands this platform. I'm getting a lot of echo too. I'm not sure why.
Yeah. Yeah, social media, that could be a job in itself. For me, I used to try to do my social media on my way on the subway and think of a clever post. But even still, that's still daunting to think about, especially when you're trying to run a business. So now that we have somebody that's really solid, helping us with our social media channels, it's taken a lot of weight off my shoulders. But yeah, definitely take classes on Instagram, take as many classes, or find a millennial who knows how to do that stuff, and really pay him a couple of bucks to help you out. Your pictures, or come up with a little campaign. You know,
And I feel like y'all ignoring us Gen Xers, man. We do a lot. You know what I'm saying? We do a lot. Shout out to the Gen Xers in the world. but there's also another step to building up an audience, understanding that you're building an audience to retarget. You're not building an audience just to have likes and follows. You're building them to retarget. So understanding that data is important. I'm seeing more companies offering more geofencing type solutions, data tracking solutions at a lower price point than previously you were able to have access to, which makes you more competitive with news stations. I personally am not going to pay for airtime. I don't need to pay for airtime. If you, me being on your show attracts people to your segment. If I'm building my audience and I have the audience that you want, so then my job would be then to take that audience to be built. I know what that avatar looks like, and then I use other tools to retarget them so that way I can convert them to a paying customer. And that's the message that our restaurants need time to understand, or you don't have time, just hire a consultant that can do it. Hire Black owned firms, Black creatives that can do it for you, and you'll see the direct benefit right away. So if it's $3.99 a month, I mean, you can convert $400 in a day to pay for that monthly service. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't be a big deal.
I can see the correlation between those who have figured out how to use social media effectively and those who are still figuring it out. And I am one of those people who are still figuring it out. Part of that being, some people say they don't need social media because, as you said, they have a person that comes in every day at 2:00, orders the same sandwich, and that's a loyal customer. But who are your actual customers? Like, what did they do? What need do they have? What job do they want you to do? What attachment is it? Is it that you just, hey, I'm the person that just makes this sandwich? Is it a social connection? Is it an emotional value that's added to your service? Like, who is your customer? What do they do? What do they need from you? What do they expect from you? And that provides a more holistic view of what that avatar actually is. Yep. As someone that spends most of their life on Instagram, I will admit, I'm very surprised when I see a lot of restaurants that aren't consistent in their campaigns, and specifically if they haven't posted in 2 years. Oh. Right? All the faces, I saw all the eyeballs come together. It's challenging, or it's difficult to navigate. So I'm looking for food trucks all the time. I spent a day in Indy a couple of days ago, and this is why you need to download the app. Is I'm driving around trying to find certain restaurants that said that they were at this place, and they were not. One of them was completely on another side of the street. I pulled up to the address. It was a tire place, and then I had to figure out where they were. The social media isn't updated. They say that, oh, the menu is online. It's not. It's just pictures of the food. There's no price. There's no listing. All of that is marketing, because I may have a day where I may feel, okay, I got a couple of hours. Let me go find some food. But eventually I gave up and said, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm just going to go to Popeyes because I know they open. But you have to think about that goes against your marketing brand. Is it easy to locate? Is it clear? Is it concise? If you're a food truck, how often are you posting your location? Do you have a calendar that you're posting, which gets into a content calendar? I don't post every day. I probably should. but what type of content are you posting? Is it clear? Is it concise? Is it on brand? And how often can people almost expect it? And that kind of goes into the algorithm, what you were saying about making sure that you're taking part of these courses. Um, I even with Canva, I'm learning to navigate Canva to make sure that my brand packaging is where it needs to be,
Right.
and all of those things. That is simple, but it does take work to navigate, and a lot of people actually aren't taking advantage of that. So again, take some of the free
Yeah.
classes. You'll be surprised that a lot of things are actually, if they weren't free before Corona, many of them have been either discounted or they've had moments where they have like a free window to take advantage
And
of.
I would just say, I think, and for me, I used to get really frustrated when things that I thought as a person that has an MBA, like for me, it's common sense. But I had to tell myself, some people started their business passion, their business because it was a passion that evolved into a business, or they took their passion and started a food truck or a catering company or a restaurant or becoming a personal chef. But I want for people to hear that in your city there are free business resources. When you if there is a tech or trade center in your city, they offer free courses. The SBA has free online courses that they offer. So there are tools that you could register for that don't cost you nothing but time, but they benefit you when you're talking about want to be a more profitable business. So you don't have to go through 4 year, well, right now, undergrad is like 5 to 6 years, or 3 years of graduate school to learn these things. You can go seek out those free resources at the seriously at the library,
Yeah.
trade schools, universities, YouTube. There's so many free resources that you can Google to understand how can I be a profitable business, because they'll hear terms like Canva or marketing strategies or brand canvases, those terms, it might sound foreign to them. They might just skip to that. But you can take advantage of those free resources in your trade and tech centers in your area.
You said something that actually Chelsea sent me an email about when it comes down to the questions, and it's just beware of starting a business off of your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Be very clear on what your services are. Be very clear on what your benefits are for your business. What's the value proposition? Because without clarity on your brand values and your business model, your marketing strategy is going to be falling on deaf ears. To that, I would add one of the free services that I've been taking advantage of is Score. So Score is in a lot of different major cities across the country, and they're there to help mentor you, bring in your ideas, and they can help with that. What else was I going to talk about? So we talked about the passion. We talked about a lot of the mistakes that a lot of people make, but also, and there's many of them. And the other thing I want to stress too is that there's always going to be margin of error. Like it's not going to be perfect. There are things that I thought was good when I first started that now I look back on, I was like, what was I thinking? I should have done this. I should have had, a mailing list. I should have had X, Y, and Z. But you learn and you grow from it. I also want to say for those who are thinking about, well, how do I figure out what my value proposition is? Sometimes you may come across different nonprofits that's in the area that's doing great community development work. One of them is the Western Community Resource Association or Alliance. They've been doing really great with helping businesses in the Birmingham, Alabama area and those affiliated with them to figure out how to do their business model canvas, how to do value propositions. And having that resource is very helpful for when they come to people like you guys and say, hey, got this business. This is where I'm at. I need some help. Like, how can you help me with my metrics? How can you help me with online distribution and things of that nature? I want to get more traction. How can I get on Eat Okra? Like, having that plan in place will also go a long way.
There was a question from Stephen in the chat. He asked about Score, and I'm curious as well. I just Googled it. Could you talk a little bit more about Score and what that is? Because I've never heard of it, and I'm definitely curious.
Yeah, so you want to go to score.org, And it's helping small business communities through mentorship and education. So they have about a couple of weeks. I started it not too long ago. So the first thing I did was saying, hey, this is where I'm at with my company. Sometimes they might help you a little bit with legal stuff, but it's mainly about getting your business plan solid, and helping you to identify, who your customer is, what's your plan for growth. And it's a free resource. So you have an initial consultation where they get a feel of who you are, and then you can grow from there. They've been around for about 50 years, honestly. They connect you with a mentor. So it all depends on if they're in your area. For me, I'm in West Lafayette, so the closest one is in Indianapolis, and then after that, I'll have to go to Chicago. So if you want to know more, you would go to score.org. And what's great is now that they have remote mentors are now available too, because of course, COVID.
Yeah, I just looked at the website, and you can request a mentor. They'll find one in your area that could be close to you. No, that's really good. I mean, and again, that's another resource that, I mean, had we not had this conversation, had I not known, been aware of it, my tongue getting tired over here. But to me, that just comes to mind this: if as entrepreneurs and business owners, if we're networking with each other, you're gonna find a resource that you did not know anything about. I'm learning about merchant services benefits because in my mind, I'm creating an app, but until I had a conversation with someone about merchant services and that benefit, I had no idea what it could have done to scale my business in a different way. I had no idea. So now thinking about how can we be competitive as a Black-owned business with third-party companies that are charging our restaurants these 30% fees, which becomes really ridiculous in this market. So networking is something that also during COVID has definitely kept what we're doing with the OKC Black Eats here in the forefront of people's conversation.
Okay, so I've realized we're really short on time, so I want to get two questions that's out the door for the person that asked about the food truck. Actually, yes, I do see food trucks going to be here to stay and going to be expanding because they're the perfect combination of curbside and delivery. So really strategize on, can I work with an HOA and get my food truck to be a part of a Food Truck Fridays? Can I just, come to a neighborhood? Really think about the collaboration that you can have. The food truck industry is a space where, if done correctly, you can collaborate with other food trucks and be successful in a collective. So definitely email me at thefoodtruckscholar@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to answer that. We also had a question about cloud kitchens. So we have a listener that is in the UK, and cloud kitchens have become very popular over there. Are we seeing that trend happening here in the United States?
Cloud kitchen.
Yes.
I've heard that term.
Okay. So
Yeah.
That had me thinking about something else that had nothing to do with kitchen.
Yeah, no, we've definitely seen a few of those come through Eat Okra as well. And even if you're like on like a Uber Eats or something like that, you'll see a couple of cloud kitchens as well.
yeah. So wait, now I'm getting it. Okay, how about now? Okay, great. So cloud kitchens, I actually had DeAndre Zachary. So if you listen to the Food Truck Scholar podcast season 2 with Raging Kitchen, he's actually working on a cloud kitchen. So basically, they have a space where you can prepare the food, but you can have multiple kitchens, multiple restaurants operating at once, and they can send the food out and it's delivery. So that's the quick and dirty version of it. There's a lot of different companies like Uber. Uber has gotten into the cloud kitchen arena now. And some people believe it's the thing of the future. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm learning more about them as it comes along. I'm also learning they're also called maybe ghost kitchens and dark kitchens as well. So that was not the term that I was exposed to. I learned about cloud kitchens really about a month ago. So I think people are becoming more and more aware of them. I have started to see some articles talking about their love and hate for cloud kitchens. So I think it remains to be seen.
Yeah,
And
the ones I know. Oh, I'm sorry. The ones I know of in New York, they're more focused on helping small food entrepreneurs get started. So it's not like a long-term space. So it's a shared commercial kitchen where you can go when you're trying to get started in your food business. In the first year or so, you use that kitchen till you graduate and you're having your own place. That's what I've seen personally in New York City. Not the long term, where it's just meant to be a long-term servicing for businesses over the long term. Yeah.
And thank you to Sean and Steven. So the Cloud Kitchen is the brand name for Uber, but they're basically becoming pretty big in Atlanta as well. So, you know, there's a lot of different options that we're thinking about, like even us here on the panel, just all the different ways that you can market and position yourself as a brand and as a company. And Cloud Kitchen is part of that. So here we are. But I don't want to keep us over time because I know we're all trying to do things, but I want to say thank you to all of you who have participated. For those who were not able to do so, we can make the recording available. I also want to thank each and every one of you for being on the panel and for answering the call to be here and being willing to have questions thrown your way. So thank you all so much.
Okay. Thank you. Good being here.
All right. So everybody, make sure you check out Dashable. Download the app for Dashable. Check out OKC Black Eats. Download the Eat Okra app, and make sure you subscribe to the Food Truck Scholar podcast, available on all podcast platforms.
Support Black-owned restaurants. Buy Black.
And support Black-owned apps too.
Absolutely.
Black on Black on Black.
Hashtag that.